The Houston Rockets are one of the most surprising teams on so many levels throughout this NBA season. Of course, they had that absolutely terrible start where they lost 15 games in a row, but they've now come back to make NBA history, winning 7 games in a row. Now, ultimately, regardless of what happens over the weekend, this run by the Houston Rockets has been absolutely brilliant. They face the Bucks tonight. They face the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow, and then the Hawks on Monday. None of which will be easy games. The Bucks have only lost one game with their big three all playing. The Grizzlies have been on a run even without John Morant, and the Hawks have been very tough to beat, specifically at home, with one of the best offenses in the league. And so, regardless of what happens here, this Houston Rocket team has had a brilliant run. And so, I wanted to talk about that run. I wanted to talk about my takeaways so far from this Houston Rockets team on this run, and speak to how good I think they can be for the rest of the season. And so, let's just lay out a few stats here before we talk about things a little bit more generally from players and for this team in general. The Houston Rockets, after the 7-game win streak, now sit at 8-16. They are not terribly far out of a play-in spot. They are only 2.5 games out, despite such a slow start. They are 7-5 at home and 1-11 away, which part of it is just due to the breakdown of them winning a bunch of games on this win streak at home, but could also be due to the fact that this team's just going to be better at home, which for a young team completely makes sense. On this season, they sit 27th in offensive rating, but 19th in defensive rating. But in their 7-game win streak, they are 15th in defensive rating, so a bit of an increase on the defensive end, but see themselves in 3rd in offensive rating, hitting at 118.6 as their offensive rating, amongst the top of the league. It is worth noting that Jalen Green has been injured for all of this run, if I'm not mistaken. But to anyone that's saying that Jalen Green being out is any bit a significant reason why this team is able to go on a run, no. Now, this team does not go from the 27th best offense to the 3rd best offense compared to the season to a 7-game stretch with Jalen Green being out. Jalen Green, sure, has not been great so far this year, has not been overly efficient on the offensive end, but he being out is not solely any bit of significant reason why this team has been so much better on the stretch. Part of it's being at home, part of it's individual players playing well, part of it's rotational changes. There are a large amount of things that collectively have allowed this to be a successful run for the Houston Rockets. Part of it was at the start was that people just thought the Rockets were beating easier teams or teams that were dealing with injuries. But they started with the Bulls, and they beat the Hornets in an extremely high-scoring game. Then they beat the Thunder. Then they beat the Thunder. Then they beat the Magic. Then they beat the Pelicans. Now they've again beat the Nets. So they haven't just completely rolled over terrible teams. And even if they were, this is a team that was losing every game. So who cares if they were beating bad teams? But they've beaten the Bulls, the Hornets in a high-scoring matchup, as well as now Brooklyn Nets, throwing the Magic, the Pelicans, and OKC twice. And you've got yourself 7 wins in a row for the Houston Rockets. Now, 6 of those games have been at home. But again, this team wasn't winning anything. You need to win your games at home. Houston have done that. And they're a younger team. You would expect them to be better at home. One big part of why this team has been so good since the 7-game win streak started was Daniel Theis has not been a significant part of the rotation or the lineup during the stretch. I believe he has only played in 1 game. That was 2 games ago. He was in the starting lineup. Other than that, Christian Wood has been at the 5 since then. He is much more effective at the 5. He looks much more comfortable there on the offense. There's more spacing on the offense when Daniel Theis is not on the floor as well, which just benefits everyone. And Christian Wood has been playing much more like early on in this season last year, all-star level Christian Wood, since he's been now at the 5. Kevin Porter Jr., although still not anywhere near as good people would like him to be in the games he has played during this stretch, although he has missed a few. He has looked better. His playmaking has looked a little bit better, at least better than it did early on in the year. Eric Gordon is a massive part of how good they've been in this stretch. He has really turned it on over the last couple of weeks. His shooting has been extremely good. His scoring has been extremely good. He's showing how valuable he's going to be to a team at the trade deadline as a veteran piece for a contender to be a scorer off of the bench. There's no doubt someone's going to be interested in him. Garrison Matthews, I thought was brilliant last year in the time he got with the Wizards. I didn't really get the respect or the love that he deserved, but he is getting it now. He's been brilliant for the Houston. 11 games, 6-star, playing 28 minutes a night, averaging over 10 a game. He's a 40% three-point shooter. He just knows how to shoot. But there's also a lot more hustle, energy, defense in his game this year than I saw last year with the Wizards. He fights for loose balls. He dives on the floor. He gets rebounds. He competes defensively. You name it. This guy is willing to work and do the little things to make winning plays while also being an extremely good three-point shooter. He's not really doing much else for you on the offensive end other than three-point shooting and spacing. He only shoots about 1 shot per game that isn't from 3, but he is an extremely good three-point shooter and is an extremely hard-working player. Throw in the fact that Alperen Sengun's looked really good for this group. Looks like he'll be able to make it at least serviceably enough defensively while being a very good passer and playmaker for a big early on in his career, decent rebounding, and has some nice tools offensively. Money Brooks has come in and given some production. Daniel House, Jason Chait have had some of their better performance of the season throughout the stretch. And so collectively, this group has just played well enough to burst themselves through onto this winning streak. There's no standout player, although Christian Wood you could argue is, but I would argue it's more of a collective. It's a change in Christian Wood being at the 5 that allows him to be more impactful, that allows the team to be more impactful with more spacing, and ultimately allows this offense to be that much more successful. Has really propelled them on this run. Now, do I think this level of play is going to continue for Houston? Do I think they're going to be the number 3 offense by offensive rating for the rest of the year? No, I don't. They've benefited a little bit from poor competition. They've benefited from playing at home throughout a lot of these games. But ultimately, they just have played really good basketball throughout this stretch as well. No credit to be taken away from them. But Houston are not going to be a team that's going to start rolling off 7-game win streaks like it's nothing. Now, could we see them stay in the play-in picture a little bit? Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible as long as Christian Wood stays healthy. I mean, this team, when Christian Wood was healthy last year, wasn't terrible. I mean, given John Wall was in the picture as well, and we don't know if he's going to see the core yet this year with Houston or not. But ultimately, given the fact that right now, the 10 seed in that Western Conference is looking to be between Minnesota, who we know it can be hot and cold, lost streak earlier, then they looked really good, went on a win streak, now they've lost 4 in a row again. You never know with them. Sacramento have looked good now since Alvin Gentry's been their head coach, but it's Sacramento, you never know, and the Trailblazers just don't look good. Dame and CJ have been out, sure, but they're sitting in the 11 seed as well, and the Spurs are in that conversation as well, which are not an amazing team. So the Rockets could keep themselves in the playing game conversation, no doubt about it, and I think they probably will do that to some extent moving forward, but don't expect Houston to just continue some amazing run. Don't expect them to continue to play at this high level that they have been, but I think this is a lot of newfound confidence for this group. I think they're going to have a lot more confidence on the court, a lot more confidence in their abilities to get wins in the NBA, have more confidence, have more poise, and have less stress on the basketball court. Ultimately, it is worth mentioning that especially towards the back end of the year, they are going to lose a few pieces on this roster, which is going to hurt their success towards the back end of the year, with guys like Aaron Gordon, Jason Tate, Daniel House Jr. potentially all getting moved, specifically Aaron Gordon and Jason Tate. But ultimately, this is a good group, better than they certainly looked through the first 16 games of the year, and they are fully deserving of their 7-game win streak. That being said, that is my thoughts on the Houston Rockets up to this point. If they go on a nice win streak here over the next few games, and they can extend this to 9 or 10 games, they might get mentioned in another video here coming up. But that is my thoughts on the Houston Rockets on this win streak. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.